have not received anything for that. It's
Anybody really disastrous, they could be using UDP.
yeah, they could have been using. But we're gonna do your talk then first, and then wait until the pizza arrives. Another talk that Jelmer was texting me, I think was from Slush also, or was this a Kickstarter? The Kickstarter, because I follow Jelmer on Kickstarter and then see all the stuff that he backs, and then I saw him backing this, and then saw him saying, "Hey, we should talk to these guys and invite them for the SaKE." So here you are talking about social computing. Mike Bradshaw, give him a round of applause. Take it away.
So, always the problem, technology. That's why I work at a technology company, because I like to make my life hard. If I wanted to make my life easy, I'd work at a company that deals with paper and pens. Because they tend to, or paper and pencils. Paper and pencils, because then as long as you've got something to sharpen them with, you can always use them. So, I think it was about half, 2/3 of you had heard of Solu, so got lots and lots of slides which are filled with bullet points. Haven't. So for those who haven't heard of us, what Solu is doing is completely rethinking the computer. We started in the autumn of 2014, so we're a little over a year old as a company, with the basic premise that computers are fundamentally broken. They haven't really changed since 1984. Apple created the Macintosh, and we haven't really done anything new and exciting with computers. And we looked at it and said, it's 2014. Stuff's changed since 1984. You know, so we should be able to change this. We said there are 3 big problems in the world of computers. That you have to look after your computer. You don't email, or there's a few people in this room I can tell who've also got hairstyles like mine, that you will all remember writing things onto floppy disks, walking across the office to give them to people, right? We don't do that anymore. The way we work is changed. And the other thing is, as developers in the room, you realize it's actually hard to make money, right? Because you actually do have to do this like marketing and business development. You didn't go to engineering school to do marketing and business development. So what we have done with Solu is that we've solved all of these problems. All of it. It may take us a couple more months before they're actually in the hands of people, but that's because we're doing hardware as well. For the developers, what we're doing is we've changed the model so that as Solu, we sell the hardware like any other computer company. Then we charge a monthly subscription of $19. And we take a quarter of that and put it into a pool and share it amongst the developers of the native apps, the native Solu apps. So as developers, you don't have to think about your business model. You just have to think, is my tool cooler than everyone else's? Because if it is, more people will use it, you will get more money. The way of working has changed. Is there any middle managers in here that spend their life emailing Excels and PowerPoints and Word documents to each other? All right? For the rest of us, we work collaboratively, right? Like developers use Git. All right, we all use online task management tools. Nobody's using standalone tools anymore if they can possibly avoid it. You know, occasionally when you have to deal with legacy companies, you have to resort to some old technology. But everyone else is using online collaborative tools. So we've redone the operating system so everything's collaborative. And then the same as the indoor positioning team, we realized that while the internet is pretty pervasive, there are many, many places where it stops working. And it always stops working just when you need it. So Solu is the world's first cloud-linked operating system. Because one of the big problems with cloud operating systems is the network goes away. Or it's slow. Or it's intermittent, which is even worse. There's nothing worse than, oh, it's working! Oh, no, it's not. It's working! No, it's not. Right, so Solu is cloud-linked. The device itself, the Solu computer, this little wooden box here, acts as a cache for everything that's in the cloud. So what happens is the device runs the apps locally, and the operating system that we have built figures out what apps, what data do you need on the device now, because it knows what you're doing. And anything you don't need on the device, it can quite safely delete. It's very easy for the operating system that we've built to delete it because it knows it's already in the cloud. And if it isn't in the cloud, it's not going to delete it. But as soon as it gets access to the cloud, the operating system takes care of moving everything up there. What's next? Right, so this is, it's a little bigger than that, or your hand has to get bigger. So, that was the original size we're going to do it. What's the next one? Oh yeah, how will we use Solus? So what we imagine people will be doing in a couple of months' time when the first early delivery Solus get delivered is they will hook it up with a screen. So what I'm doing here, I've got the screen here, I've got the Solu, I've got my keyboard. I would actually turn around and use it like this. Or I'd use it as a media player. And eventually we may create chassis. Or third parties will create chassis. For the hipsters who want the old school tablet or laptop style of device. What's next? Talked about this rev share. Anybody watch this series? Oh, there's a few nodding heads, yeah. The reason we put the picture in is that we always get asked, who do you think is your first user? Who do you think are your users for Solu? These guys. Entrepreneurs, guys who live in co-working spaces. They're willing to take a risk because of the idea that Solu will make their lives easier. Because they don't have to think about the computer, they just have to use the tools to get on with work. And then when they stop doing work, they just walk away and everything's backed up for them, always. This is the original team. Javier, Becca, and Chris are the founders. Yona is the employee number 1, and Emily is employee number 2. Yona's the designer, Emily is our core developer. He's now head of software. No, head of product. Is small company. Titles change. The coincidence between these two pictures is actually coincidental. we took this picture in Katianoka very early in the life of the company, and then we added this one into the presentation, and we thought, oh, they match. But I'm bored with showing you slides. So this is what Solu looks like. This was something we wanted to do very early on, was wherever we can, we present Solu using a Solu. It occasionally gets pretty meta in the office because everything is Solu. So the UI. Our designer, Yona, had an opportunity to completely rethink the UI. So he did. And he thought, what's the important thing you need here? It's who am I working with and what am I working on with these people? So everything that's linked by a tendril is shared. All the stuff that's out here is not shared. That's just in my account. Nobody else but me can see that. So this is the new way of working. You share and work together collaboratively on content. The placing. That's what I put this there because it makes sense to me. There's no other logic to it than that. How do I want this laid out? How do I need this grouped? This is the top level for Solu. This is my life in Solu as it is. Now, I'm running six different spheres, 6 different things that I'm working on. So there's the Solu presentation, some fun, Olympia Book Fair. I have to be a bit careful because other people, we're sharing the accounts at the moment, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on in some of them. That was another demo. It's a trip to Iceland, which I keep trying to leave. And here's some stuff. Where it is. So, it's just a simple little text editor written in JavaScript. The apps for Solu are written using HTML5. So they're really, really easy. HTML, CSS, and a bit of JavaScript to do the heavy lifting. So that's a text editor. I'm now going to attempt. The pulsing is to show that somebody has accessed that recently. So any time that somebody accesses a file, you need an indicator, and it's breathing everything in Solu. For those non-Finns in the room, Solu is the Finnish word for an organic cell. So that's everything in the company is very, very organic. Yeah. We can pause and eat pizza. I was just going to show one last little thing, which is this, which is I've actually got like a device and one of the Apple devices. That is indicating that what I'm actually doing is using one device that's got a different account on it, so I can see that somebody's actually pushing data into this. So let's pause and we can come back after the pizza so it doesn't get too cold. It may have been something with the cord when I put it up the shirt, but we're back online. Okay, everyone's ready. So where did we get to? Oh yes, showing you the little sparky lines. The developer we have who's building our front end, our graphics developer, used to work at Remedy and was part of the demo scene. So he's got a lot of these, organic things, the blobs and everything. That's all his thing. So how are we going to get the revenue for? How are we going to get the developers to take the revenue off of us? And the reason is that we will find those developers who are at the cutting edge, who understand the business model and want to be first. They want to be first on the platform. What we have built in the platform today is the text editor you saw, fully collaborative, an outliner. This basically does the job that most people use Microsoft Excel for, which is to, let's see, okay, that's broken. Okay. Keep columns of information. But this is what most people use Excel for. So we built this tool called an outliner, and this is something that is really nice about Solu, is because we have two screens. We have the little screen down here and the big screen up here. So the big screen has the content and the small screen has the controls. That one isn't currently collaborative, but we will fix it. So the only thing we have missing from an Office suite is something to show pictures in sequence, or to show bullet points in sequence for the rest of you who work in middle management. Can we all stop doing that? Can we all just start showing each other pretty pictures and kittens and poppies and things? The world will be much better. So we want to encourage people to have better behavior. So we got text, numbers in grid format, and then pictures in sequence. And that's all we kind of believe. Oh, and a web browser. Rather than keep talking about Solu, I thought one of the questions that came up in the break was tell you a little bit about what happened with Solu in the last sort of 2-ish months. So in the last 2 months, we had these devices delivered to the office. So you know, the wood, the actual device, and the final form factor. So we could make a video and launch a crowdfunding campaign. And the crowdfunding campaign was less about raising money and more about checking, does anybody in the world understand what we're saying? Does anybody believe in us? And so and that's what Kickstarter is much, and the other crowdfunding platforms are much, much more about nowadays, is validating that you've managed to get your hardware to prototype stage. You've got something that works, mostly. The software's nearly there. And then you launch on Kickstarter. Anybody done a Kickstarter as a person who's trying to do it? Anybody be thinking about doing something on crowdfunding? Ah, okay. Well, at least one person will find this useful then. And there may be some, I guess, in Holland or Hungary. So the first thing to understand about doing a crowdfunding campaign is that this is a pure, straight marketing effort. All the engineers have to do is get the thing that you want to Kickstarter or to crowdfund into the shape where you can make a video about 2 weeks before the campaign launches. That's all the engineers have to do. The rest of it is all marketing. So you pick a date where you're going to go live, and if there should be some significance to that date, why have you picked it? It's the holiday season or whatever it is. So you need to be planning multiple weeks before that. And you need to be lining up all the press contacts, giving them exclusive viewings. This suggests that you might need more than one person doing this, because that's one person who's talking to the press, and there's another person who's trying to set up the video and trying to create the Kickstarter page, etc. Now, I keep using the word Kickstarter because that's what we did. So we went with Kickstarter. The other platform is Indiegogo. We did a bunch of research before we launched, and we chose Kickstarter because that's what the community said. It's a more trusted brand. Everyone prefers it. They think we'll have more success on Kickstarter. And we can't argue. 7 days before the end of the campaign, we reached our target. So we set the target at 200,000 euros, and we did it. 2 learnings, because I was the person who was actually running the Kickstarter. 1, Kickstarter is a full-time plus job, right? You get up in the morning, you log into Kickstarter, and you respond to all the incredibly wise questions that are not at all answered in the FAQ for the 10th time, and you try and remember to be polite and civil. So you have to log into Kickstarter. There's a back end where people can send you kind of private messages. There's a front end where you see all the comments. we, luck or design, decided that any responses on the comments page basically would come from members of would come from personal profiles. So we all went and backed for $1 or bought a Solu ourselves, so we could put comments, because only people who have backed can put comments. So we could respond as ourselves in public, rather than having a company name. But in the back end, where people sent us messages, we responded as Solu, the corporation. Then you've got Twitter, Facebook, and any other social media channels you may have. And you have to do that from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to sleep. All day, every day, for the length of the campaign. It gets really, really tiring.
You got the money.
Yeah, the thing is that the money will pay for just about, because most people launch Kickstarters and they sell at cost. So yes, there's money coming into the company, but it's just moving through the company bank account. It doesn't help you as a company. And that's also not our model. We will be selling Solus for $450 retail. They're on Indiegogo in demand shop currently, if you missed it. So you could have bought them on Kickstarter for $350. They're now on Indiegogo in demand for $360, $370. They're now priced in dollars. The campaign. So there's little things like when you create the campaign, once you've picked your country of origin, so we were technically an Irish Kickstarter campaign because there is no Finnish Kickstarter. And we didn't want to create a US entity just for that because it's kind of expensive. So Ireland is euros, so the campaign's in euros. That's the way Kickstarter works. It's useful because they understand that Americans don't know how to do maths and so can't do currency conversion. Every other country on the world, everybody can do currency conversion. The Americans don't seem capable. I don't know what it is. There's something in their education system that they lack that fundamental ability. Yeah, it's just, that. You know, the multiply by 0.9. Yeah. So what Kickstarter does for you, which is a bit of, causes a bit of a panic because you look at the page and you're like, Americans need to see this in dollars. We have to put something in the thing. And no, Kickstarter will do the conversion for you using some sort of mid-market rate automatically. So if you come in from an American IP address, it will show, 350 euros, and it's whatever it was at the time, $360. The other thing that they tell you, but you always forget, is there's a number of things that get locked. Like the descriptions of your rewards get locked as soon as somebody backs them. So one person backs something, that's it, it's locked. You cannot change it. It's there forever. Your typos, your spelling mistakes, so you really have to pass the descriptions past as many people as possible. This is what takes the time when you're doing a Kickstarter, is setting the page up. Now I mentioned we're on the Indiegogo in demand. That was because as we got towards the end of the campaign on Kickstarter, Indiegogo approached us as one of the few companies where we'd actually read the mail. That's the other thing nobody tells you, is you launch a crowdfunding campaign, you will be spending your entire day writing emails back saying, hey, thanks, that sounds like a really great idea, we'll look right into that, delete, from all sorts of people offering you marvelous methods of getting more sales. Most of them are scams, some of them actually break the terms and conditions. Hey, but what are you going to do? Indiegogo hasn't been as bad, but we're on the in-demand part of Indiegogo, which is post-campaign, so it's like continuous sales before you can have your own shop. Excuse me. So this has given us an ability to see what the two platforms are like. They both have the same limitation in that you kind of need to do a crowdfunding campaign in order to understand how to do a crowdfunding campaign. You have to first do the whole campaign. Especially Kickstarter, the UI and the tools you have available to you change depending on whether you're pre-campaign, in the campaign, or post-campaign. So if you're thinking about doing Kickstarter, I would suggest you Kickstarter $1,000 worth of t-shirts for a 2-week campaign and actually do the whole thing and then deliver the t-shirts and do the whole thing. Indiegogo, it's a little better because I don't think their interface changes as much. The editor is slightly better, and they have the ability to convert your backers into people helping you out. And I think I've run out of time. Yes. Well, I'll be around afterwards, and if anybody needs any questions.
Questions. So a round of applause for Mike. Any questions about the American math system, maybe?
No, I'll stick with refraining the insult feeling. I know I'm in Europe. I know we're constantly insulted. There's no reason to stop there.
You're one of the top, what's it, 0.5% of Americans who have.
I've actually lived outside the country, several continents.
Well, no, it's not just
you
that.
Know there is something like outside of the country.
That's right. That's right. Well, but that is actually the problem in most cases, is that people really don't actually understand that there's something different outside of the country. They say, oh, it's Europe. That must be exactly the same as America. It's just across the ocean. You guys use the same currency, right? There's something called currency conversion. You mean I can take money and change it into other money?
Yeah.
The average American has no clue.
Yeah, you use US dollars everywhere. Okay, any questions? Yes, sir.
It looked like when you were like doing the mouse thingy, like you would, it worked like a touchpad.
Yeah. Okay, so
no, it works like a mouse rather than a touchpad. Like the cursor was moving there rather than like with a touchpad where you click on it and.
Okay. So the question's about how you actually use the device. So what happens is when you're using the device, the screen has numbers of different modes. When I was using the outliner, it had buttons, so you touch them like buttons. But most of the time, you use it like a touchpad, so you just track it around. So it's a single finger, like a trackpad, like a mouse pad on your laptop. Right. And we're using we have our own gesture language that we're still locking down. Yeah, so this is the idea is that that's why it's this size and shape. This is about the right size for a trackpad. But why not make this is the whole computer. This is everything you need. So this replaces that big lump of metal and.
I do get the idea. Surprised you didn't put phone format.
Okay, how many people in the room know how expensive it is to do phone hardware? Yeah, that's why we didn't do it. We've got European levels. So the question was originally, why didn't we do it as a, we could put phone in here. Yeah, so if you go to our website, you can see what the hardware is. And it is effectively a very high-end mobile phone, but with no GSM capability. Because adding the GSM part isn't very difficult from engineering, but it's hideously complex and hideously expensive from a legal testing, etc. And it just pushes the timelines out. And we started off with the idea of we want to be a portable computer. So when we launched, the journalists came up with the name for this. It's the world's first pocket computer. So that was the kind of thing. That's something we can do later if everything works out. Right? Adding in GSM is not technically very difficult, but it's a process thing. Question at the back. Quickly.
Final question.
because the question was about where's the processing take place. It's on the device. So for now, this is, I remember I said it's zero maintenance. This is acts as a giant, not giant, it's 32 gig cache of what's in the cloud. So on here you have 32 gigabytes of local cache storage. You don't think of it as storage, you just think of it, this is like your sliding window of the most relevant 32 gigabytes of your stuff. And then in the cloud you have 500 gigs, terabyte, 2 terabytes, however much you need of your stuff, and then this acts like. And then all the programs run locally because this has touchscreen and a battery and Wi-Fi, so it means that it will occasionally connect to the internet, but not at places like Slush or you know, when you're roaming and stuff, so you're constantly asking for the damn Wi-Fi password. But it's enough to get online most places, and then the operating system takes care of the synchronization and the updating. You don't have to like press a button and do the sync stuff. I think we're